Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vince Fosi. I'm a Vice President for Cyberspace and National Security Policy here at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and I'd like to welcome Benjy Neumann, Director of NASA's Spaceflight Capabilities, to the stage with me for the next few minutes. We're going to talk about the work that he's doing to enable astronauts' safe, healthy experience in space. But first of all, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for coming today, and thank you for coming to this new branded Global Aerospace Summit. We are thrilled to welcome you back in person. So Benjy, would love to just start with some opening thoughts from you on the work that you're doing and how you're keeping astronauts safe. Well, we're working our way back from COVID, so that sounds better. Go for it.
Sure. So first of all, I'm in the work here at
Hold on 1 second. We're going to come up with a microphone, I think. Give it just 1 second. Good opportunity to plug the raffle that we have this afternoon. If you haven't yet, back at registration, you can fill out a card, drop it in the bin for a chance to win, I think, some airline tickets that we have. And let's try it maybe one more time. Sorry,
okay, well,
Benjy. That's perfect. I think we've got you now.
Okay, so I work at the Space Operations Organization at headquarters, and I have a division that's called Human Spaceflight Capabilities. And in that, I get to do a number of things that fall in that category of capabilities. The astronaut health is one of them, but first just mention that we are also providing the capability to test rocket engines, particularly in Mississippi at the Stennis, large engines, or hypergolic fueled engines out in White Sands in New Mexico. And also I get the opportunity to look out and oversee the aircraft that the astronauts are trained in, at the aircraft that we use to move them around, or actually the Super Guppy that we move very large components in. But the two interesting, relevant efforts that I support that we're going to talk about is the crew health and safety effort and human research. So the health and safety is about taking care of the astronauts from day one, medically speaking, and this actually starts with the selection process. Really important part of our effort is to make sure that the astronauts we select are really healthy, have healthy lifestyles, both physically and behaviorally or mentally speaking. And then we need to watch them and take care of them doing training when they're in space. A lot of things go wrong. I mean, things could happen. They could get sick. Just need to be there and take care of them all the time. And then after being in space for many months, we really need to worry about when they come back to reacclimate them to gravity, which is really important. And the other program is the research effort, that human research program, where we're not thinking about, okay, we got these really important issues in space, microgravity. The body doesn't have to hold up the weight of the body. Our bones can get weaker and they could start to lose mass. Our muscles don't have to work as hard, including the heart. The fluid flows around the body much easier. And our bodies are pretty smart. They adjust real quickly. And that's not actually a good thing, because then they'll be acclimated to microgravity, and then what happens when they come back? And of course, bone loss is not always replaceable. It doesn't always regenerate. So those are two major ones, and of course, should not forget about radiation in space. And so we're doing research to see what we could do to keep them strong, keep them healthy, and prevent anything from going wrong, and then being prepared for lunar missions and Mars missions, which are way more challenging.
Yeah, and Benjy, that's probably a great place to pick up on where Mike was just briefing on the Artemis mission. And part of your focus has been on the effects of extended space travel on astronauts. Can you talk a little bit about your work in ensuring they are prepared from their initial onboarding until launch for the effects of deep space travel?
Yeah, okay, thank you. Because this is really interesting to deal with this. So just thinking about long duration flight on the station where astronauts are as I was saying, get used to microgravity. Well, the other things happen to them in their inner ear. They lose, when they come back, they aren't necessarily able to just walk unassisted. Maybe there's balance issues, and it takes a number of weeks, maybe months, before they are back to normal. Well, that's a real issue, because if you're going to think about going to Mars for 6 months or 8 months transit in microgravity, how are you going to be ready to do anything once you land on Mars? I mean, it's a partial gravity compared to Earth, but it's a big problem. So getting ready for Artemis, one of the things we could study is longer missions in the vicinity of the moon, on the moon, and that's a very important research. It's both important from that physiological point of view, but also behaviorally. How are you adapting to being away from the home planet? I mean, speak of another issue, when you're on the station and something medically goes wrong, emergency, you could be back on the ground in a matter of hours. When you're at the moon, okay, I think in the days of Apollo it was 3 days, but now in our current configuration, mission operation plans, it's easily 5 days. And what are you going to do? How are you going to handle it? I mean, that's hard to deal with an emergency that I could get you into a hospital in 5 days. It better not be much of an emergency. So how are we going to deal with that? And we really want to practice living and stressing those kind of issues on the moon and at the gateway, which is orbiting the moon and a place where they can be. So the Artemis mission is really going to provide us a chance to move on into those areas that are really difficult.
Yeah, and you teed it up well, I think, with outlining some of the challenges on astronauts and what they will face on the Artemis mission. What do you expect? What are you planning for? What is NASA planning for in terms of research and development of new technologies to enable future human space exploration?
Okay, so thinking about these long duration missions, and once you head off to Mars, sure. After, I'm not sure even if a week after a week is any good, but if something happens on the way, it doesn't make a difference that you just were 2 weeks en route to Mars. You don't just stop and turn around. There's no moon or other planet to get a gravity assist and swing around and come back. So you're gone. And then when you get towards Mars, and the time delay for communication is easily, I think, 20 minutes each way. So what are you going to do, and how are you going to handle that? How are you going to deal with that? How are you going to handle behaviorally the whole transit where you're in a can? I don't know how big it'll be, but it's sure not going to be something that you can go jog around the gym for those 8 months on the way there. So, to answer your question, one of the things we need to do is figure out how to see what's ahead. Or artificial intelligence maybe is a way to do this, but to forecast what's happening to the astronaut's body as things change. So they can't have their regular consult with their flight doc in a normal way. So how about if we find a technology that is monitoring the astronauts, sees things changing incrementally and very small changes, but gives us a clue to what's happening. Maybe that'll be, we could adjust and give them some medication maybe, or something to change that, or it's a food or it's something else. So that's an example of technology that we could really use to get to Mars and long duration missions. Besides that, something way more current is a number of technologies that we actually have tested on the space station just for this reason. So for example, there's our health analyzer that could take a drop of blood and analyze it and figure out do a blood count. That's very relevant if you are worried about space radiation and maybe an effect on the astronauts from radiation. So you could use that device. We could use that device for identify many other things in the blood that might give you a clue of what's happening to the astronaut. There's a DNA analyzer that can look for organic matter and what kind of things might be causing illness or changing along the way. We actually tested that in the space station. There's a ultrasound. So One of the things that happens to the astronauts is because of the loss of gravity, the fluid in the bodies start to go up instead of being pulled down. We're worried about the effect that might have on the optic nerve. So we analyzed that with an ultrasound. So people have developed, there is a technology out there for a handheld ultrasound device that can analyze, and the whole technology that you usually think about that's on a cart in the doctor's office is on the chip. And actually the device can change the wavelength and for different depth of penetration of the ultrasound. So instead of just analyzing the optic nerve, which we have done for many years, now we can analyze many other components like kidney stones.
Yeah, we do have just a few minutes left, and wanted to ask you about the role that the private sector is playing. The industry is rapidly pushing the development of the space economy, and certainly space technologies. NASA's announced a new partnership with, or contract relationship with Collins and Axiom on spacesuits. But can you forecast out a little bit on how NASA envisions working with the private sector on keeping astronauts safe?
Yeah, so first of all, we are partnering with Axiom, or at least the private astronauts that are in those missions are willing, very willing, to participate in some of our research. So we always have had a challenge of getting a number of people to participate, the number of samples to have statistical significance to some of our testing. So we're going to increase the number of subjects with that partnership. Furthermore, we're going to rely on industry for these kind of even terrestrial kind of health devices that we could then, those examples I just talked about, and use them for monitoring the health of the astronauts and taking care of them. And because we can't, as we said earlier, we can't get them back to Earth quickly. What we could do about it? There's even a technology that is being worked on that we're partnering on producing pharmaceuticals. So let me just add one thing, and that is that our human research program has a institute called the TRISH, a Translational Research Institute, and they are our main method of reaching out to the private industry, to the new technologies, new companies, to partner with them and to bring them in. So that is a mechanism that we've built into the program and has been very successful over the years.
That's terrific, and I love the call to action. Hopefully you have a few minutes to stay around and meet with some of the attendees out in the atrium, and hear more about some of the exciting work that they're doing and the path of innovation. Just a final thought from you on what are some of your goals for next year, and what do you hope that NASA can achieve, whether it's through the Artemis program or other programs?
Well, what I'm really interested in is these connections to industry, to these devices, to the partners. No, there isn't any new initiative. This is very important to keep pushing these things. One thing I think I alluded to and maybe mentioned a little bit was this ability to diagnose or see things that are going to happen to the human body on a handheld device that are small, that won't take up much mass and power on the way to Mars. And I'm really hoping that this year we will, through Trish and other ways, we will find those companies that are working that, and there are companies doing that already here, just for people who want to monitor their own health and are a very health-conscious country. And there's a market for that, and so we want to connect to those companies and see whether they have interest in how we could partner with them to take their devices or the technology and move it ahead. That's an example, and being able to develop, manufacture drugs in space instead of taking them with us. It's a big issue to take food and drugs with us to Mars for 3 years. Will they be useful? Will they be effective when they're sitting around and being radiated on that whole transit phase there and back? So, yeah, that's there, the connection with industry.
It's a tremendously exciting time for human spaceflight operations. Look forward to being a partner to you and NASA, and however we can be helpful. Please thank Benjy for his time here today, and really appreciate the conversation.
Thank you.